Amoeba Sister video one time yesterday, so you guys have your worksheets. I'm going to play it again. I could even play it another time if you need to. Okay, here's some things we're going to go over. So, why do cells need to replicate? And when we talk about replicate, we're talking about one cell becomes two, okay? This we refer to as the parent, and these we call the daughter cells. But guys, unlike me being a parent and then having my daughter, the parent actually makes the daughter cells. So half of these daughter cells are actually made from the parent, and then the other half are new things. Okay, so guys, why? Well, we need to grow. You're taller, you're bigger than you were last year. We need to replace. If you cut yourself, you need to heal. Well, what heals things? You replace the cells in those divots. And we also, like you need to replace when you, you shed. Girls, we take showers and we feel like all of our hair is coming out. Well, why are we not bald yet? Because our hair is growing. We are replacing those cells. Okay, now, the cell cycle looks like this, okay? If this was a stopwatch, okay, and we had to start, okay, 75-ish% of the time, they're in something called interphase. Okay, now, all interphase is prepping this cell here with its DNA into double the size with double the DNA. So there's 3 steps. One is called G. Who remembers what the G stand for? Growth. So the growth 1. Then there's an S phase. Who remembers what that stands for? Synthesis, or it means to replicate your DNA. And then you have a G1 and a G2. That G2 just stands for growth as well. So guys, in the beginning, the cell grows, and then it still has that amount of DNA. When synthesis, the cell is grown, but it doubles the DNA, and then here it finishes growing. Okay, when it gets to the M mitosis that we're going to talk about today, all they're doing in here is divvying up everything. Okay, I'll try to draw a knife right here. So I'm going to cut it in half, okay? That way, by the end, you have 2 cells that are identical to each other and identical to the parent cell. Guys, if you scratch your face, do you want like brand new cells with a whole bunch of new DNA with new characteristics there? You want the same cells that you scratched off replacing. You want it to be the same skin color, the same consistency, okay? So you want your new cells to be identical to your old cells. Okay, now this is what we're going to look at, mitosis. Now, they talk a lot about humans. Now look up here, you may not know this. Okay, humans have 46 chromosomes. Chromosomes just look like X's, but guys, what they are? It's just DNA wrapped really, really tight, really tight. There are miles of DNA in just one chromosome. Okay, so humans have 46. So this is after interphase. So interphase was up here where everything doubled. Now we're in mitosis, okay? And we have I think I drew them too big. Okay. So going into interphase is when everything doubled, okay? now we're going to go. Sorry, these should be a little bit smaller. Okay, they're going to call it PMAT. P-M-A-T. So here was interphase. Okay, and this last step, this is C. The mnemonic device that I teach my kids is, I passed my algebra test, cool. Interphase, prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, cytokinesis. Okay, so in interphase, there's just growth and replication of everything, okay? Now, in prophase, why do you think I'm drawing a dotted line around the nucleus? What is the nucleus about to do? It's about to disappear, okay? Now, normally our nucleus wants to protect our DNA, but how are we going to separate our DNA if it's protected? So the first thing that's going to happen in prophase is no nucleus. Your nucleus is going to disappear. And y'all see how this is just a bunch of wavy DNA? Your DNA becomes chromosomes. So guys, genetic material, DNA, chromosomes, they all just mean DNA, nucleic acids, but chromosomes are tightly packed, okay? Now, look up here. In metaphase, what do you see happening? The chromosomes are where? Are they randomly throughout the cell?
Center.
In the center, good. This is metaphase. This is actually called a metaphase plate. That's something we would talk about in like advanced biology. But basically, the chromosomes line up in the middle. Okay? Now, on either side here, this is where the two different sides are going to form. You have these finger-like projections called spindle fibers. Okay, spindle fibers are attaching to the sides of the chromosomes. And the reason the chromosomes are an X is because half of the X, they're copies of each other. Half of the X goes to this side, half goes to this side. Okay, so now, how do I erase on this thing? Oh, there's right here. Okay, that's a lie. I'm scared to push that or the whole thing's gonna erase. Okay. Okay. Up here. Okay, so now that the spindle fibers are attached to the chromosomes, they're going to literally rip them apart, and then this is what they look like. So the spindle fibers are retracting and pulling back the chromosomes to the two poles. Okay, you see how it looks like it's ripping them apart? Now, the chromosome halves are on either side, and you want to protect them. How do we protect our DNA? We make a what around them?
Barrier.
A nucleus, a barrier. So then what's going to happen is in telophase, two new nucleuses form. And I always remember, well, I'll tell you how I remember all these too, okay? And then in cytokinesis, you think of cytokine, cytoplasm. This is where the cytoplasm actually splits. It actually cuts them in half, and now you have two cells identical to each other and identical to the top. Okay, this is how I remember prophase. I'm going to do this in a different color, purple. Okay, Whoop. I'll just do little. Okay, no. The reason why I call it no, I call it no nucleus. That's kind of like what a prokaryote is too, right? No. Okay. Meta middle. Why would I call metaphase middle? Because
That's when they go in the middle.
Yeah, that's when they go in the middle, Miss Feist. Okay, thank you. Okay, meta, middle. Meta, middle. So they're lining up in the middle. Look at y'all. That's why we call it meta, middle. Anna, apart or away? Why would I call it Anna away? Anna apart. They're being pulled apart. Look, they're being ripped and pulled apart. So we'll just call it away. A-W-A-Y. Okay. Tilla, to, or guys, it kind of looks like a telephone, right? Hello. Okay. So Tilla, to.
Or those ear things.
Yeah. So like Tilla, two new nucleuses, two new cells, and cytokinesis sounds like cytoplasm. That's where the cytoplasm splits. Okay. So this is our refresher. How do I take a picture of it before I exit?
Miss Weiss, is there something you can put out on the video?
No, hold on. I gotta start this. Hold on.
Screenshot it.
Y'all, sorry, I'm brain farting. Okay.
Did you forget to start the video?
So now we're gonna watch the video. You guys at home, I'm gonna attach this, and all you have to do is message me the answers.
Some folk. Look at you, Miss Weiss.
Okay, y'all, being recorded. Just remember. There's my preface. Okay. Let's see if this one, cell cycle and cancer. We watched that one yesterday. That's right. Now we're going to watch mitosis. Plan book. Sorry guys, my plan book was not working yesterday. Let's see if it works today. Okay. Mitosis old, mitosis new. We're just going to do old. We did not see this video. I forgot we did cell cycle yesterday.
Have you ever looked down at your leg or your arm to find some cut and you have no idea where it came from or how you got it? So you put a Band-Aid on it and a few days later it's gone. It's all healed. And you don't even think anything of it, of the amazing process that caused this to happen. Or let's say you're looking at your nails and you notice that they're kind of jagged looking because they've really grown since the last time you cut them or filed them down. Or let's say you look in the mirror and you notice that you are a lot bigger than you were when you were 5 years old. What do all of these things have in common? All of these things have one thing in common, and that is mitosis. Mitosis is a
Okay, I forgot to talk to you about the questions. So this is what we're looking for. Ready? Mitosis is done by your body cells. So guys, your body cells. Hair cells, skin cells, nail cells. Guys, look up here. Every cell in your whole body is a body cell, except for those cells that make babies. So guys, what cells makes babies?
Females.
Eggs in females and sperm in males. So guys, every single cell you can think of in your body is a body cell except for those two. They're called gametes. They're special. They only have half of the DNA. Guys, and that makes sense, right? Because you have to have an egg and a sperm come together to make a baby, to complete its genetic set. Half of the DNA comes from mom, half comes from dad. Then they come together and that forms a full set of genetics, okay? So every cell in your body, every cell you could potentially cut off and give to somebody for a sample is a body cell except for your eggs and sperm. So mitosis is done by your body cells. This cartoon illustrates an exception. So guys, in the picture, they're telling you about an exception. I just talked about that exception. There's two cells. That looks like the boy exception. I'm not going to say anything more because it's going to go over in the video, but there's your exception. Number 2, describe how mitosis is important to your body. It just talked about like your fingernails, okay? So why is it important?
Division?
Yes, kind of like those things that I set up here. Your body needs to do this. Your body needs to do this, okay? 3. This illustration is trying to demonstrate something that mitosis is not, okay? So remember how I said when your parent cell makes 2 daughter cells, those daughter cells are those daughter cells that they make supposed to be identical, or are they supposed to be random? Identical. Because remember, when your body goes through mitosis, do you want to make random cells, or do you want to replace the cells that you want to replace with the exact same copy? Identical. So that's a hint for number 3. Number 4. Yep. Number 4, mitosis is just one small part of the cell cycle. Describe what would occur if cells were in mitosis more than they were in interphase. So guys, we talked about it yesterday. Cell cycle is a clock. What happens if the clock kept on going to mitosis more than it should be? Or like this, instead of it going to mitosis and dividing once, what if it went backwards and divided again and again? Because remember, you need a full set of DNA. You need 2 sets by the time it gets to mitosis, so that way it can split. Well, what if it splits more than one time? Okay, number 5, when cells are dividing, it is important to understand that they have to move chromosomes equally to both cells. What was that cell phase where they lined it up? What was the line-up phase called? In the middle. They lined it up in the middle. What did it start with?
Antiphase?
Close. Metaphase, they line up in the middle. Then when they pull them apart, anaphase. What they're talking about. Why is it important that they get pulled apart equally? Okay, number 6, mitosis starts and ends with diploid. This is going to be a hard one. Di means double. That means they have 2 sets of chromosomes. Both parents each contribute a set. In humans, how many chromosomes should be in each of these diploid cells? What they're asking you is, how many total chromosomes should humans have?
You told us to say, but I forgot.
They'll tell you. They'll tell you. Okay, and on the back, they're going to ask you to draw it. Draw it. Yes, and I want to say you might even have good drawings in your Edgenuity. Rachel, do you have your Edgenuity right there? Let's see. Last page. Nope, you do not have it in your Edgenuity yet. Okay.
So I guess we can look up like a prophase index and just
Type of cell
I'll make
division
sure I pause it for
done
y'all.
by most of your body cells. And it's really important for cells to divide. If they didn't divide, you couldn't grow. I mean, how do you grow if you can't make more cells, right? So one reason why you're bigger than you were when you were 5 is mitosis. Mitosis also is great for repair of damage. If you have some kind of accident, like when we were talking about the cut on your arm or your leg, you want to make sure that it can get repaired. Well, you have to make more cells to do that. So mitosis is great for that. What mitosis is not, okay, it's really important to understand what it is not. It is not a process that makes sperm or egg cells, because that is something called meiosis, which sounds very much like mitosis, unfortunately, but it is a different process. Okay, mitosis is only done by body cells. Mitosis also makes identical cells. That is the goal, is identical cells. So if you're trying to make more skin cells to replace worn out or damaged cells, you don't want to start suddenly making stomach cells there. That would be ridiculous. You want to make sure you have identical cells replacing what was lost. So mitosis makes identical cells. Real important thing. Now, it's also important to understand that your cells are not dividing all the time. That would be a disaster. If all they did was divide, you would just have this rapid, crazy growth. In fact, that's kind of what cancer is. Cancer is uncontrolled cell growth. We have a great clip on the cell cycle and what the cell is usually doing most of its daily life, which is actually a phase called interphase, where it's growing and it's replicating its DNA and carrying out some of its cell processes. That's what it spends most of its time doing. But mitosis is a very short amount of time. But during that time, it's a very important process because this is where it is going to divide. Before we get into the steps of division, it's really important to understand that your cells have something inside them, an organelle called the nucleus. And the nucleus holds your DNA. DNA is really important because it's your genetic information. And if you're going to make more cells, you need to have the same DNA in those new cells as you did in the original cell. You want it to be identical, no mistakes. Very important. The problem is you've got a lot of DNA, and we've got to get that DNA into the new cells using mitosis. So there has to be a better way to organize that DNA. Like that DNA needs to go to the container store and get organized. Well, what actually happens is that DNA can be organized into these units called chromosomes. Chromosomes are made of DNA and protein. You've probably heard before that humans have 46 chromosomes. That means in human body cells, in the nuclei, that's the plural of nucleus, you don't say nucleuses, you say nuclei. In the nuclei, there are 46 chromosomes. So basically that means that DNA is organized in chromosomes. It also makes it a lot easier to move over when you're making new cells. Okay, now here's something that's tricky about mitosis that students get confused with. So if you have 46 chromosomes in a cell, you have to duplicate those chromosomes. That basically means you're duplicating DNA, because remember chromosomes are made of DNA and protein. You're duplicating the chromosomes before you divide. You have to do that because if you're going to make an identical cell that has 46, well, you had to duplicate it before splitting. So if you look at our cell cycle video clip, we talk about an interphase, which is a stage that most of the time cells are in. They actually duplicate their DNA. So during that time, they would have duplicated their DNA. So instead of 46 chromosomes, during interphase, they would duplicate and have up to 92 chromosomes. So that when it gets to mitosis, they will be able to split into two cells that each have 46 chromosomes. And that will be identical to the original cell. So let's get right into the mitosis stages. I like to tell students to remember PMAT. It's a little acronym, helps you remember the P is for prophase, the M is for metaphase, the A is for anaphase, and the T is for telophase. So remember PMAT. That's the stages in order. So the very first step is prophase. Prophase, because it's the beginning step, the nucleus is still there, and it's going to go away in a little bit, so this is a stage where it's actually still there. And the chromosomes are visible. In fact, we say they're condensing, which means they're kind of thickening and visible. So prophase, very beginning step. The next stage is metaphase, M for metaphase, and I also like to remember the M for middle, because in this stage, the chromosomes line up in the middle of the cell. The nucleus has been disassembled, it's no longer there, so we've got the chromosomes in the middle, waiting there to be pulled apart for the next stage. Next, the A is for anaphase. In anaphase, I like to think of the A is for away. The chromosomes move away. They're moving to the opposite side of the cell. So they're kind of moving to the poles of the cell. Now, one thing to point out, these chromosomes are not just moving by themselves. They actually have something called spindles. These spindles are fibers that help move the chromosomes to the opposite ends. It kind of helps them move along. The last stage, the T, is for telophase. And in telophase, the chromosomes are actually at the complete opposite ends, and new nuclei are forming on each side to make these two new cells, and they're starting to surround the chromosomes on both sides. So I like to think of the T is for 2, because in mitosis, you end with 2 cells. And again, remember, they are identical. You can really quiz yourself online with a lot of mitosis pictures. There's tons of mitosis quizzes online to practice being able to look at the cell picture and naming what stage it is. And remember, we really do care about mitosis because without it, we wouldn't understand how cells grow, how they repair damage, and it's really a lot of our cancer research is dependent on understanding mitosis because cancer itself is uncontrolled.